Introducing The Secret to Victory, a new branded podcast from Gatorade and Gimlet Creative about how the best athletes in the world use defeat to fuel a win.
I'm not supposed to lose, ever.
We lost 13 in my rookie season. It was definitely a humbling year.
I'm host Dominique Foxworth. On The Secret to Victory, we'll hear from Serena Williams, Matt Ryan, Peyton Manning, and more. Visit Gatorade.com/podcast to listen now or subscribe wherever you listen.
Welcome to the Right Time Podcast. The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
What's up, kiddos? The bad guy's back. It's the Right Time with Bomani Jones on ESPN Radio, which is presented by Progressive Insurance. However, my name is Clinton Yates, and I'm filling in here on a Thursday. All guests on the Right Time appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. You can get in touch with me through the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed, at ESPN Radio, at Clinton Yates. You hear the noise behind me. We're live at NABJ in New Orleans, Louisiana. It's a convention that brings together a lot of black journalists and prospective journalists. There's a job fair, which is where we happen to be right now at the ESPN booth. There's all sorts of panels that go on. For those of you who might be looking to get into the business, our younger listeners, or for those of you that are in the business looking for your way to find your way around, this is the convention you go to. Everybody's here. If you listened to the program yesterday, you heard some of our ESPN people come on the program and talk about their histories in the business and how they got to where they're going. And that's what we're going to do as well today. As people come by, we're going to try to grab folks. My man Tyler Tynes is coming on in a little bit. He wrote a good story for SB Nation about Will Smith, who used to play for the Saints. Going to hopefully have Steve Weish of NFL Network later. Going to hopefully have couple other people come through. So that's what the vibe is going to be like today. We're basically live. We're here. We're in the building, and we're having fun. But let's get to it. You know who my favorite player is of all time for the Memphis Grizzlies? You probably do. It's Zach Randolph. And the reasons are obvious. He's never cared about anything, it seems. He's a little rough on the court. He's had old man game ever since he walked into the league. And he still does. But then he got traded to the Sacramento Kings. Kings have been trying to make a little move this summer. They picked up a couple people. They picked up Zebo. I believe Vince Carter still made that roster. George Hill making moves. Yeah, but that might not go so well now. Not because Zach Randolph is on the downside of his career, but because Zach Randolph got picked up on a felony marijuana possession charge last night. Most importantly, with intent to sell is part of that. Now, look, there's a couple things that are worth explaining here. Number one is that, from my understanding, somebody that has never even been in the back of a cop car but knows a thing or two about the legalities of drug laws as a result of simply being black in America, fairly certain that intent to sell is simply a matter of how much cash and how much product you have on you at the time. Meaning, if you have enough paper hanging around and you have enough weed hanging around, it is plausible that they can deduce that you are trying to sell, even if you are just a rich dude who likes weed a lot. So if you're saying to yourself, why would Zach Randolph be selling weed in the offseason? Understand what that means in terms of the charge. But let's not get it twisted. This story is rather wild. I'm just going to read from the ESPN.com story right now for a bit. Police recovered 2 guns, impounded 2 vehicles, and seized narcotics, LAPD said. According to the police report, Randolph was arrested at 11 p.m. Pacific time. Officials told ABC7 that officers were on routine patrol when they encountered a group drinking alcohol, smoking marijuana, and playing loud music while blocking a street at the Nickerson Gardens project in Watts. The officers then tried to disperse the crowd, and the disturbance escalated. Officers called for backup when the crowd grew and people began throwing bottles. Several police cars ended up with smashed windows and slashed tires. That's no small skirmish with police officers. It's one thing for the cops to roll by and break up a group of dudes out there blazing and having some beers. It's a whole other monster when a group of people decide to start throwing things at officers. Now, I'm not implicating Zach Randolph in any of this. Obviously, I have no idea. I wasn't there. But number one, This tells you a little something about how Zebo rolls when he rolls with his crew. Hanging out in Watts. Smoking and drinking with your boys late at night and then accosting the police when they show up is about as roughneck as it gets, at least as far as I'm concerned, with NBA off seasons. I don't know what you do when you're off your job, but I'll tell you this. I don't know how many people in the NBA are rolling like Zebo. And that's no disrespect. All right? Zebo does what Zebo's got to do. I just got to say, I am pretty, maybe not impressed, but it is remarkable that this is still how he rolls at this stage of his career. Because Zebo ain't no young man. Zach Randolph and I are the same age. And I know that if I hang out too late, I dang sure can't even get up and do radio the next day. Never mind run up and down the basketball court, but it is the offseason. Ultimately, though, I wonder what the Kings are going to feel about this. Because they just picked him up. He was in Memphis for a while. And I'm going to go ahead and presume that this wasn't the kind of thing that people in Memphis would have really cared about. Sacktown's a little different place. He lives in L.A. in the offseason. He's lived out there for a while in the offseason. He played out there for a while. And I want to say he picked up a drunken driving charge at one point when he played for the Clippers. Which, again, that happens. You know what I'm saying? I'm not out here trying to implicate that Zach is some thug because I don't necessarily believe that, nor do I particularly care. I just know that for a 36-year-old man to get involved in a situation like this at this stage of his NBA career, I got to say, I did not think I would see this from Zebo at this point. I ain't going to make no whole judgment pass on what his priorities are in his life. I'll tell you that it ain't easy to maintain that lifestyle and still be a productive NBA player at that age. Shannon, when you heard that they were throwing bottles at police cars, that's when this story took a whole new level for me. I don't know about you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, this wasn't just your regular, hey, let's see what's going on. The fact that they had the block literally blocked off and were throwing bottles at the cops. Like, this is wild. Like, this is on – it's basically on some inciting a riot type situation. Like, this is amazing.
Right. And, like, this is a scene you would expect to see in a Boys in the Hood, in a Menace to Society, in a South Central type scenario. Those are three classic movies from the 90s that if you haven't seen, you need to go to Netflix and or whatever your streaming service is right now and check them out. But, like, this is something you hear of. This is the type of scene you see in a movie. The street's blocked because, you know, that's just the easiest way to get it done. But if I'm the Kings, I might have to have a talk with Zebo. And I'm not saying you go crazy. You just say, yo, man, first of all, you're a little too old for this foolishness. And secondarily, what's up with your squad? Can't have this. You know what I mean? Zebo's supposed to come into that locker room and be sort of a veteran presence. Now, obviously, a part of that is the fact that he can just bust somebody upside the head whenever he needs to, because Zebo's that kind of dude, and Zebo also just plainly commands respect in the league as a veteran and as a ball player, right? Most importantly. But this doesn't bode well.
And what's interesting also is that during the course of his time with Memphis, at some point, I don't know what year this happened, but Randolph became beloved. You know, I don't know if it was just because how identifiable he was with the city of Memphis, but he became beloved Zach Randolph. Not the same, Portland Trailblazer, L.A. Clipper, New York Knicks Zach Randolph. Like, this became another guy. I think the Grizzlies are even planning to retire his jersey at some point. Like, this is totally different.
Yeah. And Zach Randolph, and to be fair, a lot of what I think Zach's appeal was this sort of roughneck mentality. That's why a lot of people like Zach Randolph. Zebo is not just a nickname, it is a persona. But when that persona leads you down the line of getting caught with a felony marijuana charge with intent to sell, again, that's not the look you want. We've clarified what the intent to sell is thing. But still, for the Kings, this is not good. Your offseason guy that you wanted to be the veteran leader comes in, and it turns out he's out there with his boys in L.A. getting picked up by the cops and his boys are then potentially inciting a riot? This is your locker room leader? I don't know that that's going to fly. Now, Sacramento isn't exactly some, super lily place in terms of the type of players that have been through there. But nonetheless, it doesn't bode well for the upcoming season in which they thought they were going to make a little noise for this dude to be in this spot at this moment. I ain't trying to square up with Zach Randolph, and I don't know anybody that is. But I know that he's going to have a sit-down with the owner of that team, because what he's doing right now is not a good look for him or the Sacramento Kings.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Welcome back to The Right Time with Bomani Jones. My name is Clinton Yates, filling in here on a Thursday. We are presented by Progressive Insurance, and all guests appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. You want to find me on Twitter? Flip the coin, kid. Come get destroyed at ESPN Radio, at Clinton Yates. I tell you now, I'll tell you again, if you step into my mentions with some nonsense, I reserve the right to embarrass you in front of all of your friends. One of my friends, my new friend, is joining me right now. Steve Wyche of the NFL Network is here. I saw him walking by in the lobby. I said, "Sir, would you please come on the show?" And you were gracious enough to say yes. How are you?
Yeah, man, with that threat, man. I'm like, I don't want to step into this dojo right now, man. You might hit me with the roundhouse. Wow.
That's just for the people in the public.
I hear you.
Who I don't know.
I'm with you. If you come incorrect on my Twitter timeline, it's over.
Right, exactly.
There will be body chalk around your
Thank you.
Your next mention.
I'm glad we see eye to eye on this. So, we're live here in New Orleans at NABJ. This event is something that is important to a lot of people. We're going to get further into the discussion of diversity in newsrooms. But just for you, Steve, personally, what does it mean to you? How long have you been coming to this, and what have you gotten out of it over the course of your career?
Well, I'd say what's crazy is this is my maiden voyage.
Really?
I have been in the business since 1989.
Okay.
But this is the first time I really haven't had a scheduling conflict. Because as long as I've been covering the NFL, this usually falls like Hall of Fame weekend or something. I covered the NBA for years, and after the long season, or my kids were young or whatever, we were going to trips elsewhere. So this is my maiden voyage. And what's fantastic is we're seeing a lot of, there's so much incredible talent here at NABJ, and it's amazing that so much of it is here in one place. Because I know in a week I'm going to go to a press box, and it's just going to be me, being maybe the one or two persons of color in a press box, or go into a newsroom at NFL Network or whatever, and there's going to be two or three of us in that newsroom. And it's just so to see us all in this fishbowl right now, and then we're going to be dumped back into the ocean. We're all going to go our divergent ways. And it's just weird to see all this talent here, and then knowing how dispersed it is, and such a lack of strength in numbers, so to speak, when we go back into our individual workplaces. It's just very intriguing to kind of picture that dynamic.
It's a little jarring on some levels, too,
really
because you see so many people here and you think, oh, I know this person, I know that person, and then, like you said, you get out into the real world and you're like, how is it possible that it doesn't translate?
But the talent. The greatness, when you see Kevin Merida, who runs the Undefeated, and Bill Roden, who recently retired from the New York Times, and Jay Adonde, and Michael Eaves, and L. Duncan, and so many of the White House correspondents and things like that, all in one place. Like, man, this is a serious, Pro Bowl. It's not just the two best teams in the Super Bowl. This is the Pro Bowl. This is the best of the best.
Right.
And we're all in one space. And then, again, when the real world comes back, we're all dispersed, and we have so many battles to fight while we're doing our jobs, just in terms of being able to get stories approved and telling stories the way that we really could. But it's empowering, to have everybody here and have these healthy discussions. Of course, God, probably the only name I've heard more than Donald Trump down here is probably Colin Kaepernick.
Right.
And just to have some of these discussions going on about how his story has evolved over the past year, how society's story has evolved over the past year, it is just really incredible, because it is a phenomenon.
We're talking with Steve Wyche of the NFL Network here on The Right Time on ESPN Radio with Bomani Jones. I'm Clinton Yates filling in. We're live at NABJ from New Orleans, Louisiana. Obviously, the Kaepernick story is one that is credited almost directly to you because of what he chose to do last year, week 3. He sat before he knelt.
Yep.
Kneeled, whatever. And he talked to you about it. And a big part of that story was that you were the only one who noticed, and you were the only one who asked him about it, and he probably felt comfortable, obviously, as a man of color talking to another man of color, and said as much. Tell me a little bit about that experience specifically in terms of the day you guys had that conversation.
Well, what's interesting is I do think had somebody asked Kaepernick about it, I don't know if his answer would have been any different, whether it had been a white person, Asian person. I think this is something he'd been wanting to say. I had heard all summer that, he was getting very involved in a lot of issues. You check his social media feeds, very much involved in Black Lives Matter. So I don't know if it necessarily the message would have changed. I did have a relationship with Kaepernick going all the way back to the Senior Bowl when he was coming out of the University of Nevada. So when I would see him in the locker rooms, you would talk. When I would see him at certain functions, we would talk. So there was absolutely a level of trust there with him. I also think because of the credibility I've established, Kaepernick saw me deal with his teammates for years, with the Frank Gores of the world, with the Vernon Davises of the world.
Right.
The talk with me, it wasn't just going to be like some explosive, I'm doing this to make myself look better for the big story. I've covered enough big stories. And so if you read the original article, it's funny because I go back and read it from time to time because some of the reactions and stuff I hear people talk about today, I was like, if you go back and you listen to his original message, it is so on point. It is so well thought out. And he hasn't wavered from anything he said back then. And it's just, we talked for a long time after the game. It was a 10-minute interview, and we talked about 10 minutes afterwards. Me being a 50-year-old man, him being in his mid-20s. And he knew. He knew this was going to be explosive.
Right.
He understood that he could lose his career and his endorsements over this. He said so publicly. I don't know if he necessarily expected it would be at this point. But he didn't do this knee-jerk. It wasn't an emotional move for him. So it was a very intriguing conversation.
Steve, let me ask you this. You've obviously been in the game for years as a veteran. Did being a part of this story affect your career in terms of your relationship with some of your peers?
Well, I mean, that's a great question. I haven't really thought about it. Sure, a lot of people are like, hey, you're the guy who broke the story. But, it's not necessarily put me on a bigger profile in my job at the network. It wasn't something as to where, let's say, I gained from it. I definitely didn't hurt from it. A lot of people, when they hear the name, they put two and two together. Okay, you're the one who broke the Kaepernick story. And I did a lot of interviews because of it, but it wasn't something that necessarily, let's say, all of a sudden put me on the front pages or tore me down in any type of negative way.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
The Kaepernick situation for me is one that, I've obviously talked at so much length about, but at this stage, I feel has become, I don't want to use the word bastardized, but it's moved so far sort of left, if you will, from where it originally started in terms of people like Spike Lee potentially trying to hold rallies in front of the NFL and so on and so forth. I want to get, if you don't mind staying for another segment,
sure,
we can talk a little bit more about it on the backside, but I do want to get your impressions right now of whether or not you thought it would ever go this far when you first had that conversation a year ago, the 10-minute conversation you referred to.
Yes. I really did. I'm old enough to remember when Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf for the Denver Nuggets didn't stand, and the reaction that people had of him not recognizing the flag. He played for a couple more years, but he was pretty much done. So I knew right away this honestly could be it. And he discussed it. We discussed it.
Yeah.
We discussed it. He knew, but I knew right away this was going to be a big story. The blowback could be significant. He was dealing with a league where the national anthem and patriotism in the military, even though he said this isn't about the military, law enforcement. I knew all those things in play that we could be at this point.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
I'm joined by Steve Weiss of the NFL Network. We've been discussing Colin Kaepernick. If you forgot, Steve was the man who Colin originally talked to after he decided to sit in protest of what he felt was and is unfair treatment of black folks by police officers in this nation. Let's hear quickly, though, what the San Diego Chargers coach had to say about whether or not Colin Kaepernick should or should not still be in the league.
I think he certainly earned the right to be on the team, and he's done a lot in this league, and he's still a young guy, so it wouldn't surprise me at all if he wasn't on someone's roster real soon.
Awesome. Thanks for that ringing endorsement of the situation.
Yeah, look, we've heard this universally from coaches and players. No one's going to come out and say, no, he shouldn't be on a team because he stinks or because of his political stance. That's just not what we do.
Right.
I mean, you just don't, because you never know. He could be on a team. He could get hurt. I don't think he's going to get signed. I mean, I've been saying it for months that I do not think
the ship has sailed.
I think the ship has sailed.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of the owners, they talk about blackball. I don't think the NFL came out and told teams don't sign him. I don't think the NFL cares less. Right now he's a backup. He's not going to be a starter.
Right.
Okay? But I think so many of these owners are, one, afraid of potential public backlash, even though that's BS, because if some people don't show up at the stadiums, there will be other people to fill their seats.
Mm-hmm.
I think they are more worried about law enforcement in their particular cities saying we're not going to provide security at your stadiums.
Okay.
We're not going to give you police escorts on your buses from the hotels to venues. I think they're more worried about that. And there is a military backlash. But you know what's interesting about this, Clint, is the two teams that have publicly said we're interested in Colin Kaepernick. The Seattle Seahawks, the one team with the stones to actually have a face-to-face meeting with him, and then the Ravens, they have caught so much hell for not signing him. Not the 30 teams that have laid in the shadows, right?
That's a good point.
But the two teams that actually said, okay, we're interested in him. They're the ones catching the backlash. So now, why would those 30 other teams step out into the light? Well, they're saying, good Lord, the two teams that that express interest in him, they're catching hell. We're good right where we are because we'll let them take the hits. We'll just ignore the whole thing.
Steve Weiss of the NFL Network joins us right now on The Right Time with Bomani Jones on ESPN Radio. I'm Clinton Yates filling in here during the break. You mentioned something very specific about the timing on the calendar. The protest that is scheduled for outside of the NFL headquarters is going to be August 29th or 23rd, I believe, which coincides with the one-year anniversary of when he did this. But a year ago, the country was in a very different place, Steve.
Right. Where were we in the country? We were on the precipice of the presidential election. So right now, racial tensions were inflamed. By the way, a certain candidate was kind of stoking the flames. You had so many people who were disgusted with the whole process. So then here's Kaepernick, right in the middle of right before a presidential election where we're clearly going to have a change in leadership. Emotions are high, throwing a match onto the powder keg of patriotism.
In sports.
In sports. I'm not going to stand up for the national anthem. Whoa. That flag is sacred to a lot of people. And in the midst of this whole political dynamic that was going on in this country, he just threw a landmine into the whole middle. So it's interesting. I don't know. I do think a lot of people have been offended, but let's say this happened into the final year of Barack Obama's presidential administration. I don't know if tensions would have necessarily been as inflamed as they were when he did this last year. I just think, and I think you said it best, people were really looking for something to hate.
Yeah.
And he stepped right in it. Now, he galvanized a lot of people, a ton of people. But at the same time, he offended a ton of people. And right now in this country, we don't let go.
That's true.
We don't let go. If you've done something to upset us, especially when it comes to patriotism, then you're done. Everyone is looking, I won't say everyone, but a lot of people are looking past the fact that he said, I'm doing this to kind of stand up for people who are being wrongly persecuted by law enforcement, and law enforcement not being punished.
Right.
Okay, my conversation, that was it. That was his message. And so much has got lost in that you rarely hear that. You rarely hear that part of the discussion.
Last thing I'll ask you, what do you think his future is? And I don't just mean in a football context, but as a human being. Kaepernick has done a lot. He's given, suits to homeless people looking for job interviews. He's donated money and food to Somalia. He's, lent his hand to urban farming initiatives. Where do you think Colin Kaepernick's future lies as either philanthropist, activist, or whatever outside of the world of football?
This might sound crazy to some people, but if the NFL, if he doesn't get a job right there, he has been made into a martyr of sorts. But here's a young guy who has been denied the right to work at what he does because of a political stance that he took. So there are going to be a lot of people. I mean, he could have the speaking tours.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll be very much in demand on college campuses and places like that. Who knows? He might want to run for political office. I will tell you this right now. If for those who have never spoken to Colin Kaepernick, he is incredibly smart. He is very smart. He is very well spoken. But I do think he'll become a philanthropist at some point. Who knows? Maybe the book deal and all of that. But he's got a lot of life to live.
Yeah.
So whatever he decides to do, he's going to do well. Like I said, he's a very, very smart guy. And I think he thinks things through. He may not have thought we'd have been to this point, but again, a lot of this stuff is not catching him off guard.
And that's sort of the thing for me. I think that at this point, there is an argument that Colin Kaepernick playing football will take away from what he's trying to do. I think there are certain people that will somewhat, I don't want to say forget, but if Colin Kaepernick, let's just say, gets on a team and all of a sudden is a beast, I think it will be a very strange effect because people will forget about what he was trying to do because the football eventually will always overshadow it, and that sort of bothers me.
It depends if he speaks up.
That's true.
I don't think Colin Kaepernick will be silenced.
He's Steve Weish. He's a guy I've respected for a long time. We're live here at NABJ in New Orleans. Thank you, Steve, for coming
Thanks
out.
for having me on. I really do appreciate it.
Okay, keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
I want to show you my first ever painting.
All right.
Okay. Open your eyes.
Oh, that's a lot of colors and shades.
So be honest. What do you think?
Well, I like how if you switch to Geico, you could save hundreds of dollars on car insurance.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Here, why don't I hold your paintbrush while you call them?
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
You're listening to The Right Time with Bomani Jones on ESPN Radio. I'm Clinton Yates. I'm filling in here. I'm in New Orleans. NABJ 2017. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance, and all guests on The Right Time appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. You want to get in touch with me? Hit me up on Twitter on the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed, at ESPN Radio, at Clinton Yates. Right now, it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. I'm at NABJ. A lot of people are at NABJ. Steve Weish of the NFL Network just joined us. A lot of people joined us yesterday. We have more to come. One of the people who's here is NBA legend Charles Barkley. He said on a panel today that he believes that if Colin Kaepernick were an NBA player, he still wouldn't be signed. He said, quote, the dude is getting blackballed because he's messing with those dudes, as in the NFL owners' money. Now, look, I love Charles. I think Charles is a great analyst, but this analogy is beyond off base. I would say that if he was sitting right here. Because in the NBA, number one, roster sizes are smaller, and number two, most importantly, guaranteed contracts change the game when it comes to what you say. There's a reason why the NFL is not nearly as progressive as a lot of these other leagues out here. Because the players themselves can't afford to put themselves in these situations. The NBA is on the forefront of all of these sorts of demonstrations for exactly that reason. The players in the NBA are the least replaceable of all of the four major professional sports. Obviously. You got 15 guys on a roster, max. It ain't football. It dang sure ain't baseball. And hockey, they're playing all over the place on multiple continents. Not that they're not doing that in basketball, but you get my point here. And so to say that if he were in the NBA, he still wouldn't be signed, well, he would have never been moved off of a roster in the first place as a result of this, because the cutthroat nature is not the same in the NBA. More importantly, I'm not sure I understand why we have to keep trying to compare this situation from an NFL standpoint to anything else. Standalone, it's news enough as is. And we heard what the San Diego coach had to say about it. If this were some other league, there's just no way to compare it one for one. If he was a hockey player, like, what? No. We probably wouldn't look at this the same way. If he was a baseball player, which he was a baseball player, if he was in the major leagues. Sidebar, guys do all sorts of goofy stuff during the national anthem in the major leagues, in case you didn't know that. Go to a game next time and watch what the players in the bullpen do next time you're at a game during the national anthem. All sorts of shenanigans. If he was a baseball player, this would have probably gone a little differently as well. But the whole point is that the NFL is not analogous to any other league. They own an entire day of the week, as was said in the movie Concussion. They're the biggest deal going, whether you like it or not, which is exactly why Kaepernick knew what he was doing. This need to compare to other stuff is just beyond me from an intellectual standpoint. And I don't really understand, outside of the fact that a lot of black dudes play in the NBA, why would we be doing this. You're listening to The Right Time with Bomani Jones on ESPN Radio. Clinton Yates filling in here on a Thursday, live in New Orleans at NABJ 2017. That's the National Association of Black Journalists, the convention and the job fair happening right now, where I am speaking from. But the Kaepernick situation, to me, has moved to a level that I'm not really sure I necessarily understand. For example, choosing to protest outside of the NFL headquarters is a move that is a tad quizzical in my mind for a number of reasons. Number one, the timing. I understand that it's the one-year anniversary, if you will, of when he initially sat, not kneeled. Let's not forget, he sat during the national anthem first, kneeled at a later date during the anthem. I get the one-year anniversary, but right now, if you're picking up another quarterback, you're doing it out of complete desperation. There are actual football timelines that make a difference at this stage that would make it difficult for some people to pick him up, that I understand. And the other thing that's a little strange to me is the notion of boycotting the league because one guy didn't make a team. I get it in the sort of larger macro sense of, if this injustice is passing, I will remove myself entirely from it. But I feel like most of the people who will be at this protest are not the kind of people who are making a large dent in what NFL fandom is anyway, which is fine. I mean, that's not a knock. I'm not saying that there's no point for doing it because it won't be specifically effective. I'm just saying that as a person who agreed with how Colin Kaepernick went about what he did and agreed with the statements he made specifically regarding police brutality, frankly, I struggle with what is a sort of proper or at least sensible way to try to, I don't want to say take it out on the NFL, but that's what a lot of people want to do. It's a difficult one. Because what's going to happen at front of the NFL headquarters? Goodell's going to come out and say, hey, guys, nice to see you. Happy Wednesday. No. But it will make a lot of headlines, and it will probably be on a lot of television stations. But I'm just not sure how that brings more light to what Colin is actually talking about. Because it's not football. It's police brutality. So protesting the league, while that might bring some more eyeballs to Colin Kaepernick's situation, ultimately it's press for the very people who don't want him in the league, if you believe they're blackballing him to begin with. Like, it doesn't add up necessarily to me, like, why, if you're more concerned about his cause, you don't go to the root of what he's actually talking about as opposed to football itself. Whether or not you're watching football is not going to change how police treat black and brown people in this country. That's for sure. There are structural issues with law enforcement, never mind the inherent racism that exists in a lot of people in this country for whatever reason, that ain't got jack to do with Roger Goodell and never will. I don't think that the protest in front of the NFL is a bad idea. I think that if I were Colin Kaepernick and I knew that what I was eventually trying to get at really didn't involve the league, I was simply using the league as a platform, I would say to anybody supporting my cause, please step off of that platform and go to the source of the problem. That's what I would say. Or at least that's where I would focus my energies if I was the one in charge. But I'm not the one in charge. I'm just the guy sitting here yelling on a microphone.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Welcome back to The Right Time with Bomani Jones on ESPN Radio. My name is Clinton Yates, filling in here on a Thursday. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance, and all guests on the right time up here via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Hit me up on the WayneHunterFlowers.com Twitter feed, fam, at Clinton Yates, at ESPN Radio. We're going to switch gears a little bit to go to my favorite sport, baseball. MLB announced on Wednesday a little something they call Players Weekend. It's going to happen on the weekend of August 25th through August 27th. They're going to bring in new uniforms, new hats, and they're going to include nicknames on the jerseys. Now, if you've not seen this, Shannon tweeted it out yesterday. There's a picture, there's like a what we'll call a contact sheet of all of the different uniforms that they're going to use. Now, look, baseball needs a lot. Baseball has issues with all sorts of things, from marketing to promotion to getting people in the seats to getting people to watch TV. It has effectively become a regional game in many regards, and that's fine. But let me tell you something. I like this little move. These unis are fly. I'm going through these right now, and some of these jerseys are kind of hot. Never mind the hats. And I'm always a big proponent of mixing things up on the uniform front. I'm a uni guy when it comes to part of the things I like about sports. And if you fiddle with the uniforms and you do it well, you automatically catch my eye. I can't remember what year it was, Shannon, when they did that future stuff with the jerseys. But those were horrible. These, however, are very, very dope. I'm going to just go through some of these looking at them right now. I know it's a visual medium, but you're just going to have to look at it for yourself and understand what I'm talking about. The Rays have a glorious little number. They look like Little League uniforms. They got a little baby blue front, yellow sleeves with a yellow hat. This is a great look.
Yeah, that was actually part of the overall design with the alternate jerseys. They were actually inspired by youth league designs, kind of harken these pros to when they played as kids.
That makes sense. The Marlins one is fly. The Phillies have an especially good-looking one, as do the Redlegs. And these hats. I mean, these hats are the coolest things I've seen Major League Baseball put out in a while, and I tend to like what Major League Baseball does with their alternate hats. Their all-star deals are typically pretty good. This is a very smart move by Major League Baseball, mixing things up on a uniform front. I might have to cop me one of these hats. This might be a situation where I cop a hat that's not even a Nationals hat. And I don't really do that like that because I don't like wearing teams' gear that I don't support. But some of these are extremely dope. This little baby blue Kansas City Royals jump. Ooh, that piece is clean.
All right.
As for the nicknames, what's up?
Oh, no, that's exactly what I was going to ask you next, is your thoughts on the players able to have the nicknames on the back of their jerseys.
I'd like that less than I like the uniforms. Because nicknames, to me, are kind of cool. But nicknames work because they're not your name. You know what I'm saying? It's not the same thing when you put a random nickname. Now, there's a nickname hierarchy. There's the nickname that is your sort of title. I think of Ken Griffey in this case, the Kid. And then there's the nickname that people call you who know you. And if you put the nickname that people who know you call you on the back of your jersey, that's a little weird. But also, on the flip side of that, not everybody who plays in big league baseball has a recognizable nickname that anybody cares about. So ultimately, you get a bunch of weird monikers on the back of jerseys that aren't going to do much other than provide fodder for the telecast, which is fine. I've said a million times, we need to get to know these players better. So from a visual standpoint, I think it's going to look a little silly. But I do think if it means that you get to see more of the personality of the players, you've completed the task, which is why it's ultimately smart. Because some of these nicknames are very bizarre. Of course, we know Aaron Judge's All Rise is what's going to be on his jersey. Noah Syndergaard from the Mets is going to wear Thor on the back. And almost perhaps the coolest part about all this is that they're changing the logo of Major League Baseball on the hats. Now, you all know the logo of Big League Baseball. A lot of people think it's Harmon Killebrew. I'm not sure if that's been confirmed or not. MLB won't confirm it, I think mainly because they don't want to give Harmon Killebrew a bunch of money. Not dissimilar situation to the Jerry West NBA circumstance. But they've changed the logo to look like a kid evolving all the way up to a man. And it moves from blue to red. So, like, you know how you see those pictures of, like, Homo sapiens moving all the way up to Homo erectus? It's sort of like that with a 5-person progression. And it's really cool. I would buy a T-shirt with this logo on it probably before I would buy any of this other stuff. It's very dope. I like this. This is one of the best things I've seen Major League Baseball do in a long time. They got socks to go with it to boot. Paul Lucas over at UniWatch is having a great time with this. So good job, Major League Baseball. I enjoyed that.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
My name is Clinton Yates, filling in here on a Thursday, live from NABJ in New Orleans, Louisiana. You want to hit me up? Hit me up on the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed at Clinton Yates. And I am honored to be joined by a guy whose name you know, whose voice you know, who I've been watching my whole life ever since he was on local TV in D.C., Gus Johnson. Mr. Johnson, how are you?
Hey, Clint, what's up, man?
I'm chilling,
You can't
man.
be saying that because, you know, you in your 30s, right?
I am,
You
sir.
can't say that, man, because you were a little boy back then, so you're making me feel old.
This is true, but that just means you've got a lot of experience. Tell me a little bit about your time here at NABJ. We've talked to various people who've come through on the desk here. For some people, it's a matter of rejuvenation. For some people, it's a reunion. For other people, obviously, they're looking to get a job. How do you feel about what this is as a production and as an entity itself?
Nah, man, I think it's been great. You know, just seeing some of the faces that I've known for almost 30 years and, you know, talking to cats. And, yes, it is a homecoming. It's a family reunion. It's a fraternity meeting. Having a chance to go to the different discussions and talk about what's going on and exchange ideas and opinions. And I just think it's been wonderful. And I like being around the young people here because they're aspiring and, you know, they're the future. And it's nice to talk to them and to try to pass on some words of wisdom or answer some questions that they have. And it's NABJ, so that also means with all that I just said, there are also some very, very, very beautiful sights in the building.
We're talking with Gus Johnson, the legend here. You've worked in so many different fields and so many different sports, Gus. Tell me a little bit about how you feel the diversity in the game is at this stage versus, for example, when you first got into it.
Well, I think it's getting better, but it still has a long way to go, and the diversity has to take place not in front of the camera. I think we see the diversity in front of the camera, but we don't see it behind the camera. Executive producers and directors and associate directors and broadcast associates, people that make the business go, who push the button to get you on the air, so who make the decisions to put you on the air. So I think that's the next frontier that has to be conquered. And I think that hope springs eternal, and it's going to happen.
Steve Weish of the NFL Network was here earlier, and I talked a lot about the fact that when Colin Kaepernick first decided to sit for the national anthem, Steve was the first guy and the only guy he talked to about it. And what my point was about it was newsroom diversity, not just for the sake of posterity is cool, but also for the sake of you getting better stories when it comes to the business.
I think that's what has to be understood. And I think that we have a lot of credible current journalists, and we have some great young kids that are coming up, and that's all part of it. But I think the most important thing is the diversity and the people that make the decisions on who tells the story. And that's where we have to, I think our business has to evolve a bit in terms of our executives and our like I said, our producers and our directors and the kids that get a chance to be the associate directors and the broadcast associates to move up, to get into those positions, to have more of a diverse executive staff and production staff as well as an on-air staff.
You're listening to The Right Time with Bomani Jones on ESPN Radio. I'm Clinton Yates, filling in here on a Thursday live from NABJ in New Orleans, Louisiana. We're brought to you by Penn's Oil Synthetics, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Penn's Oil Synthetics today. Gus, a lot of people know you for your famous calls. A lot of people know you from, internet lore, if you will, from the work that you do. But I wonder, Gus, what are the sports when you're not on the air that you enjoy just to sit and watch on your own? What is burning with you as far as not just the stuff that you cover, but the stuff that you watch, in your personal time?
I really don't watch sports that much during my personal time, to be honest with you. Yeah, because I'm just in it for almost 30 years. So if I'm at the bar and the game is on, I'll glance at it. I like the NBA, of course, because they have so many stars. I love LeBron James and Steph Curry and Kevin Durant and James Harden and Russell Westbrook and Chris Paul and Carmelo Anthony. And I love to watch the NBA. That's my thing.
Okay.
I think more than anything else when I am watching sports. But I don't spend a lot of time watching sports. I like music. I like theater. I like TV shows. I love one of my favorite shows is Power.
Oh, really? You watching Power?
I love what's going on with Ghost. He just got out of jail, and Angela, she knows that he didn't do it. Somebody planted the gun, and now we know that Angela knows who planted the gun. Tasha messing around with Ghost's lawyer, which is just bad. Now Lorenz Tate is in there, and that's his man, and it looks like they're going to have a relationship. Ghost's son is acting crazy. He thinks he's a thug, and after messing around with Kanan, and then Kanan spared his life when he could have just ended him right there.
I don't watch Power, so I hope there's no spoilers. There's no spoilers
it's
there.
Not. I mean, it's old now. It's a bit odd. So anyway, I like stuff like that.
Well, let me ask you this: if you're an NBA guy, you've seen a lot. What do you feel about the discussion? People saying that LeBron James is a better player than Michael Jordan. Do you think that's relevant, or even
he's a different player? He's a different player than Michael Jordan. I think he better rebounder. I think his assists may be a little bit better. Floor general. Is he better than Michael Jordan? No, I don't think he's better than Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player. As a matter of fact, he's just been voted the greatest African-American athlete of all time.
From the undefeated.
And I thought that was interesting, that he was number one in front of Muhammad Ali, who I think was 3.
He was 3 behind Jackie Robinson, who was number 2.
And Jackie Robinson was number 2. So you understand Jackie Robinson and Muhammad Ali, not only were they incredible athletes, but their social stands on issues facing African Americans was a big deal. But I don't think anybody's going to ever be better than Michael Jordan. Maybe equal Michael Jordan, but not better.
Sticking with basketball, we've heard a lot of talk in the last couple of years about the expansion of the NCAA tournament. I know for a lot of people who consider themselves purists, they sort of feel like, well, once you open the floodgates, you're going to have basically every team in America in the tournament. How do you feel about how the NCAA tournament has evolved?
I think it's perfect. Just leave it alone. Don't mess with it.
68 or 64?
Just not 70.
Okay.
I haven't called the tournament in a lot of years, so there's 64 teams right now because they got the play-in games, right?
Right, but I guess so that technically makes 68.
68 teams. So, yeah, that's fine. It's like I don't want to dilute the product, and I think if you continue to expand it, teams are going to get in there that, really don't deserve to get into the tournament because they haven't put in the work during the regular season.
He's Gus Johnson. He joins us here on The Right Time with Bomani Jones. I'm Clinton Yates. Filling in here live at NABJ 2017, New Orleans. What do you think about the overall Colin Kaepernick situation? We've seen a lot of stuff in terms of what he said, whether or not he's being blackballed, whisper campaign, so on and so forth. Do you have any thoughts on where that's been so far in terms of not just his message, but how the NFL has treated him as
well? It just seems like the owners don't want him in the league because he's too talented of a quarterback to not even get a tryout or for somebody to sign him. They're signing guys from the Arena League. They just signed Jay Cutler to a $10 million one-year deal with an opportunity to get $3 or $4 more million in incentives. And Colin Kaepernick has played in the Super Bowl. He's won an NFC championship game. I know he hasn't been as productive of a player over the last couple of years since Jim Harbaugh left, but I understand.
Bother
it.
You on any level?
It does bother me. Yeah, it bothers me because the man didn't commit a crime. He just expressed how he felt about African-American men and our relationship over the last few years with the police. Black boys getting killed in the street. And that was his silent protest to take a knee. And now he said that he won't take a knee anymore if he signs with another team. And for them not to give him an opportunity to play, I just think is wrong. And hopefully, unfortunately, we don't have owners in the NFL like an Al Davis anymore.
Right.
Where you could have a certain kind of individuality, but that wouldn't prohibit you from being a team if you had the talent to play. So.
He's Gus Johnson. He's a legend in the broadcasting game, and I'm happy to have been able to sit down with him. Thank you, guys.
My man.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Say hi to the bad guy, kiddos. You're listening to The Right Time on ESPN Radio. I'm Clinton Yates, filling in for Bomani Jones here. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance, and all guests on The Right Time appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. You want to talk to me? Get at me on the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed, at Clinton Yates, at ESPN Radio. Joined by me right now is Mark Spears, senior writer for The Undefeated and chair of the NABJ Sports Task Force.
Yes, sir.
Mark, let's talk a little bit about what we're doing here.
Hey, do I get free Pennzoil?
Yeah. You do put a lot of miles on that car out there in California. But we've talked to a lot of different people because we're here live in New Orleans at NABJ.
Yes, sir.
On the floor. Talk to me a little bit about what your experience is here with this organization in terms of how long you've been involved and what you think it means in general being in this business.
Well, this convention will be number 22 for me. I've only missed one since 94.
Wow.
In 94, I was actually an intern.
People are messing with Mark, by the way, as he's trying to talk here. Anyway, go ahead.
No, I was struggling to get any really solid internship, and actually the NABJ gave me my first major internship in 94. When I say major, I'm talking about Grand Rapids Press.
Wow. Okay.
So I went to Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I had applied as a student at San Jose State for about 30 internships that summer.
Wow.
That was the only one I got. And so not only did I get the internship from NABJ, and I think I was one of the bottom of the barrel people they picked, they sent me to the convention, wrote on the convention paper, and then everything changed, man. Everything changed from there. Ended up during my senior year at San Jose State writing at the San Jose Mercury News as a prep writer, and then I got an internship at the Dallas Morning News, which at that time for people in Texas, that was the best sports page in the country.
Right.
It was 75 pages long on Sundays.
That is unheard of these days.
It was a great sports page. I mean, things have changed, but, I'm forever indebted to the NABJ for giving me a chance.
So now as part of leading the sports task force, what does that entail?
Well, the sports task force is basically, to explain what task force are, there's several groups within the National Association of black journalists where there's an entertainment group, there's a new television, radio group, art, photography. Well, we're sports. So the sports group, the task force, includes all the black sports journalists across the country. Could be some in Canada, Caribbean, all over the world. And so as the chair, I basically look over all the black sports journalists in the country, and we have a board and everything.
Okay.
So we help with mentoring. We help with helping people get jobs. We help be there when somebody's down when they lose their job.
Right. Big part of things.
Yeah. We're like family, man,
Right.
And as you've seen from being around here, it's a big fraternity, sorority. We all look for each other and help each other grow. And I think now, as I guess you could say, a veteran journalist in this thing, it's more important for me to shake a bunch of young kids' hands and see what I could do to help influence them for the future, because maybe we might need a job from them one day.
Very true. We're talking with Mark Spears. He's a senior writer for The Undefeated and chair of the NABJ Sports Task Force. The Right Time is brought to you by Firestone Complete Auto Care, keeping cars running newer, longer, whatever you drive a Firestone. Mark, you were putting some miles on that passport. Forget about the car.
Man.
You were down in Joburg, the home away from home for my family, for the NBA Africa game. Tell me a little bit about that experience as far as what is the third year now that they've done this?
No. Well, the NBA Africa game is the second edition of it.
It's the second edition, okay.
Second edition.
Tell me a little bit about
years.
that experience and what it was like being in South Africa, a place I know quite a bit about.
Yeah. Basketball Without Borders is basically the thing that brought the game there. This is the 15th year that they had it in Africa, and this one was in Johannesburg. And for African kids, man, basketball without borders is like their discovery. You know, it's their it's America's Got Talent, or it's their whatever that singing show was that
The Voice.
The Voice, yeah. You got kids from all over the continent. You know how vast that continent is, coming in, and people don't know who they are, and it's a life-changing potential thing. These kids, and there's about 50 kids there. They could get a high school scholarship out of it in America, a college scholarship, or maybe get discovered from the NBA like Joel Embiid did and Gorgie Ding did. But the game this time was bigger than it was 2 years ago. I think people, Ebola was kind of messing with folks still mentally a little bit in a silly fashion, but because it wasn't a threat in that part of the continent. But Chris Paul was like the headliner. Man, this year they had DeMarcus Cousins, Porzingis, Nowitzki, Kyle Lowry.
They had some names.
No, they had some people there. Kemba Walker. And so to be at that game, man, was special. To be at a game in Johannesburg and hear the fans chant for Team Africa, it's Team Africa against Team World, all NBA players. Africa. Like, I wish I could have seen some of you there.
Right.
You probably would have brought a chair to your eye, you know what I'm saying?
For those who don't know, South Africa is a place where a lot of my family has lived for different reasons. Not that we're from there, it's just a place that we're taken there because of obviously, but apartheid existed in South Africa up until the 90s, and it was a state-ruled caste system of racism. And so to see uplifting scenarios in that country specifically for black people is really something remarkable that when you're on the ground is palpable.
Yeah, no, I trying to get some B-roll for different things. I got to tour the city a little bit, and that city got money now.
Oh yeah, Joburg, they ain't playing around, man.
There ain't no hood now. They didn't send me to no big jungle or like stereotypical that people think. There's a lot of places in the United States that probably wish they were as nice as Johannesburg.
We're talking with Mark Spears, senior writer for The Undefeated and chair of the NABJ Sports Task Force. Let's get to some actual basketball stuff, and we led the show with this. Zebo, man. Zach Randolph getting arrested with his squad. He's out, with them.
I just kind of half saw the story.
Okay, well, here's what happened.
So
I just want to know what your thought is.
Yeah.
He was involved with a situation in which the cops pulled up on some people. They're smoking weed, they're drinking, whatever. They're hanging out. As the arrests are being made, apparently the group of people involved started throwing bottles and stuff at the cop cars to the point that some people might say evolved to a riot type, not riot, but like inciting a group situation. My point is that Zebo's 36. It's 11 o'clock at night. And, I wonder what you think about how this looks for a guy who's supposed to be a veteran going into that Kings locker room at this stage of his career.
I hope it's not true for his sake.
Okay.
I hope it's not. I've actually enjoyed his evolution.
I do too. I like Zebo.
From a jailblazer to now, and I know the Kings have, done a lot to right their ship, and we're looking forward to him being a part of the youth, to helping out the youth of the team. But, with that situation, what do? You know what I mean? I hope it's a misprint there somewhere, but I'm not going to hold my breath. But my dealings with Zebo have been great. Mm-hmm. He's always been extremely professional, extremely nice to me. So I'm a hold judgment, man.
Fair enough, man. I like Zebo.
Because every time I've been around him, it's been a great experience. So I'm going to give the brother the benefit of doubt and hope that there's something wrong with that story.
I hear you, man. I just hope that, for me, it's more of a leadership thing. You know what I'm saying? Last thing I'll ask you is this.
It's disappointing.
It is. Last thing I'll ask you is this, Mark. Where do you think Carmelo goes to Houston, and if so, do you think it's a good fit there?
I know he wants to. I've been basically told that he has no interest in returning to New York, and he'd love to go to Houston. How it works, if he gets there, time will tell. There's only one basketball.
I made some controversial statements, and I said that I think Carmelo at that stage, if he's going to be good on that team, he's going to be relegated to a sort of a side role as just the shooter, because I don't think that guy could score 20 points a game on that team and have him be good.
I think Carmelo knows that there's going to be a point in his career where he's probably going to be more of a power forward than a small forward. As a power forward in that offense, I think he's really dangerous. I think he would really like to go there. Him and Chris Paul and, James. It'd be interesting, certainly interesting. But, man, the way the Warriors keep loading up, their team's coming back, I don't know that they're shaking in their boots at all.
He's Mark Spears. He writes for The Undefeated, and he's the chair of the Sports Task Force here at NABJ. I'm glad you're here, man. Thank you, fam. I'm out here, man. I'm trying to do my thing.
Thanks for listening to the Right Time Podcast. Please come back tomorrow for more. And don't forget to listen to The Right Time with Bomani Jones from 4 p.m. to 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.